So welcome everybody to the SAP coffee break. And today we're going to be covering with Mike Taylor, our consultant, data transfer workbench with SAP Business One. So if anybody has any questions, just use the chat box. Loud and clear. Okay, thanks, Francis. So it's all yours, Mike.
All right, thanks, Tracy. To make sure I unpause. There we go. Hello, everyone. It's Mike Taylor. We're going to cover DTW today. Tracy introduced me already there. Next slide. So what I'm going to cover today is what is the DTW, how to get it, and then I'll do some quick demos. I'm not going to get too super technical, but just to kind of give you like a taste of it. The DTW doesn't have to be really, really complicated. Although it can get complicated. So I'll try to give you kind of like how to start, where to find this stuff, and just give you a taste of it so you can kind of take it, do your own scenarios. So what is the DTW? The DTW is also known as the Data Transfer Workbench. It is the primary way that, say, a consultant would get data into the system. So data can be anything from, this one sec, can you get that, can you just mute? Tracy, do you mind just muting anybody coming in, please?
And so, Mike, just a second here. I think somebody came in on the phone. All
Yeah,
right.
I can't mute them. So what is the DTW? Again, DTW is the Data Transfer Workbench. The Data Transfer Workbench commonly used by all consultants, and it is kind of the workhorse on how we get our data into SAP. It's not the only way to do it, but it's an easy, once you get the hang of it, it's an easy tool to do updates, and you can do imports as well. So you can basically bulk take spreadsheets from Excel, and then you can put those spreadsheets into a format that the DTW understands, and then the DTW tool runs on your database. It's fully supported by SAP. It's not like a manual, update or something from SQL. So it's one of the ways, and one of the more common ways for you to get data into SAP and also to do updates. How do you get the DTW? The DTW comes with your SAP Business One packages. So any patch package that you have, you will find the Data Transfer Workbench. Usually, when I do an install, I will leave that patch level package on your server somewhere. We have some standard places where we leave it, or I will actually install it because I probably have already used it. So chances are your SAP server already has the Data Transfer Workbench on it, but you can install the Data Transfer Workbench anywhere within the network if you're on premise, like if your server is at the office or wherever you are, you can install that on a workstation that can reach that network location. If you're remote, then you just need to install it and publish it in your portal, RDWeb, or however you're publishing it. So if you have, if you're remote and you have access to the SAP server, you can install it there. But anywhere that it can reach the SQL or HANA server, it can be installed. If you need help doing this, just let us know. There's no additional cost for it. It's all included in your maintenance, and you can get those install files and get everything set up. Okay, I'm going to jump into my BP master data. Oops, did this show the wrong screen here? Sorry, guys. Hope I wasn't on the wrong screen the whole time.
No, you weren't. All good, Mike.
New version to GoToMeeting. Getting used to it. Okay, so here we go. You should be able to see SAP now. So the first thing that you'll get and that you would want to look up are the DTW template files. So whenever you install the DTW on a particular machine or workstation or whatever, you're going to get these folders. So usually you can just go start, then in your start menu there'll be SAP Business 1. Then the templates folder will be put into there. So you're basically going to go to this location, C program files x86, in my case it's 32-bit. Install, then SAP Data Transfer Workbench templates. And these are the templates that SAP is going to give you in order to kind of get started. So let's drill into here. You can see there's a huge amount of scope of what you can import in the different functional modules. The first one I'm going to look at is business partners. And then you can see there's even more subtypes, business partner master data. So this is very common. Like say you had a UDF that you want to populate or update, say you want to add new leads, you want to, conditionally change a property on a particular business partner. You can do all those things very quickly. Just going to warn you, it's not in the same full file format. So you can see here that it gives you kind of the primary key information, and you can see comments here. There's some information on what you need to put in those fields. So for example, like card type, it's like, is it a customer, supplier, or a lead or lid? And you can scroll all the way over here. You can see so much stuff. Property, here's all the properties. You do not need all of these. You don't need to use all of these. You don't need to fill them out. You don't, if you're going to do an update, even for a specific UDF, you only need the card code and then the UDF. So it can be as simple as that. So don't get too bent out of shape about having to fill all this stuff out. A little trick and something that still confuses me is the second row. The second row can be completely blank as far as the DTW cares. There's no need to fill this in. So you can put your own notes in here. But in the SAP templates, the second row is actually the specific database field. So you can search by the database field. I'll show you that quickly. So you can see here, it's kind of confusing that they had the DI APIs dimension here, and that's what they use, and then the SQL column here. But it's helpful if you are more familiar with queries, if you want to find something specific. So you can go look in here, modules, business partner master data. Let's go to myself. So the trick here is view system information. And again, if you're familiar with SQL, it's going to be a little easier. But you can, just for sake of a real easy one, you can hold your mouse over the name, and then in the very bottom left, I can't point at both, like down here in the bottom left, you'll see OCRD, and then you'll see card name. So every field, basically every field you hold your mouse over, you're going to see what the column is in SQL. So you go here. So card name, I'm just going to use card name. It's just an easy example. So you go in here and you can search for card name. This one, again, very, very simple. These ones match, but some of them don't. So again, if you are looking at, this one's the first one I can see here. So payment terms, that's what the DTW wants to see, but the actual database shows group numbers. So again, if you run a query for this, you would use whatever is from the query, and then you can update that just by putting your information in these columns. And you, again, if you're just going to update payment terms, you can literally just clear this, and then that's it. So if you're like, I'm going to update the payment terms, and in this case, just remember, it is going to be a code. It's going to be what is in ocrd.groupnum. So I don't want to go too much more into this. Certain pieces of like this you don't say net 30 in here, say for example. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to jump to a little bit more of a simplified example. So I'm going to I've prepared some information here. So I'm going to do this. So this is one that I have already edited, and this one is kind of a simple, just regular information. You don't have to worry about codes or any. These are just basically what we're going to call strings. So I'm saying, here's my code that I want to update. Here's the name, phone numbers, etc. So I'm just going to switch this to webinar example. Another change in notes. So you can change these again. If I'm not changing any of these, just remove this for the card for the customers or vendors or any of the BPs in specifically if they exist already. You don't have to have all the information. You just need DTW just needs what is the code, and then boom, what do you want to change? So keep in mind too, this will run through your validation. So if you do have transaction notification validations blocking certain situations, it literally does this as if a human has entered it, which is really nice. So if you do have a validation on and you violate your own validation, it will notify you in the error message that you're going to get in the DTW. Okay. So I saved this, I modified the columns that I want. Again, you don't need, you could put anything you want here. Doesn't matter, this could be notes. Again, it's just usually the database field. And then always save it as Excel. This is kind of a pro tip and it seems pretty picky, but trust me, it'll save you a lot of time. Save this as Excel, always save, 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 make sure you've saved it. Then save as, go to tab delimited text, and in this case I just saved it as OCRD. Save. Okay. Now that I've saved it, this still appears to be formatted properly, but any changes that I make to this once I've edited once I've saved it as a text file, it's all saving into text, and it will not save as the original file. Okay. So what I do here is once I've saved it as text, I always close it. It's a habit you should get into, because if I kept pushing save, 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 all it's going to do is edit this file, and it won't edit my original file. So I have definitely done this. I have, multi-sheets. It'll remove all your sheets and like it won't have anything. So I've saved it as a text tab. Then I've done a bunch of extra work and more cleaning of the data and everything. Save, 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 close it. And then I look back on my Excel file. There's nothing, no changes were there. So that's kind of a pro tip. Once you save it as your tab delimited, I use tab delimited. I think it just works better for what I've seen. I almost always use tab delimited. There's almost no situation I would use CSV in terms of the DTW. The tab works really good. So once you've prepared your file, you can look at it here. I wouldn't touch this. This is all, there's a tab in between each one of these fields, and all this stuff is ready to go. So this is just an update. So you're going to go to your data transfer workbench, right click, always run as administrator. You can get error messages if you don't. Manager, you just need somebody with access. So I'm going to log in. So this is basically the tool. Import master data. You can see there's other types. Today I'm just going to update business partner master data. And you can see all these sheets. You don't need all these sheets. I'm not really even going to talk too much about multi-sheet. You can see those as templates here. So you might want to be adding addresses or editing addresses. You'll need 2 sheets. You need contact employees, 2 sheets. You can do them all at once. So say I'm going to do an import. I would do business partners, contact employees, and addresses typically. And so I'm not really, again, not covering that, but just keep that in mind. You can do it. So in here, you want to make sure you have tab delimited. By default, it'll be comma delimited. I like tab. If you don't click that, it will look for the CSVs. So business partners, the main one, click this ellipses button here. I already have it to my location where I saved it, so I'm going to double click OCRD. Next. So what it does right now is it matches that first column to what the DTW wants to see. You can see there's a lot of different stuff in here, a lot of different properties, including all of your UDFs. I may have just screwed this up here. No, okay, it's good. It's just when you click it, it shows that there. Um, if it doesn't recognize it, it will be blank. You can manually match them. I have never had success doing that. If I get to this point, I'm kind of, I guess, superstitious in this way. I just will close the DTW, go and remake my file. It's just not worth having to like map a bunch of bunch of columns. So you can see your source data, target data, what it's going to try to put in, and so that's sometimes useful for diagnosing where things are going. Maybe you have a tab in one of your remarks or something that's screwing everything up. Maybe you had a shift in the table data anyway. So you can look at those things. Next. This is pretty good to run a simulation. If I'm relatively sure that I'm close, I will usually just ignore all errors, and unless there's like 20,000 rows, I'll just ignore all errors, run everything, check all my errors. I'll fix all the errors at once rather than say you have something, same error 10 times. You can run this simulation. So I'll just run the simulation. It's a good practice. Number of errors detected, 0. The warnings and stuff have gotten much better on the DTW. So usually it'll tell you, the column that's an error, and then you can work back and look and make sure that that is correct. So sometimes there's a little bit of there's usually a bit of experimentation, and I find that the best way to move forward is to use a file format that you've already used, or, in certain cases, you could just ask a consultant if they would share, hey, could I have an example file with customers and addresses and contacts? And I would be more than happy to share that type of information. I'll clear out the customer information from there, but just leave like what type of information is going to need to be in those files. Even for me, when I start, I don't want to start from scratch, because something that, sometimes there's a process of troubleshooting. So just the way the DTW works, it's good to have a couple of examples on file if it's a more complicated import. So again, don't hesitate to reach out. We can provide little examples in that. Again, some certain examples could potentially be billable, just depending on what you're asking. Most of the
Mike,
standard ones we would have. Yeah.
Mike, I just want to say, in our French session that we covered this morning, I had a few requests to have a copy of the Excel templates that you use. So if you could send them to me, if anybody wants them, they could just send me an email.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. These are real basic ones too. So yeah, I have no problem sharing these, or just zip them
Thanks.
up if anybody wants. Yep. Okay. Run simulation next, and the big moment, you import it. So it should say update, but it says import. So processed. So we can look back at what we changed. OCRD, webinar example. So if I look at this one, I can just push refresh. Webinar example's been updated. I go to the next one, another change in notes. So the two things I changed have changed. Very straightforward, very simple. If there were thousands of records, it would just have gone through and processed. If you had errors, you can say display failed, and it will say description, net 30 is not a valid value for the payment terms code, right? So something like that. And then you can say, oh, okay, yeah, Mike said that you need the code, not the description. I need help with that, or I need to look into that a little bit more. So it's usually pretty good in there, okay? So I'm going to do an import now, very kind of similar stuff. I'm going to look at the templates, inventory, item master data, and OITM is the main item table. So modules, inventory, item master data, first record. So we can go view system information. Once you have that checked, you can hold your mouse over any of these fields. And remember, bottom left, okay, OITM, 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 OITM. So OITM is the table that drives the information behind this particular form. So I know that I'm in the right place. So I know the OITM, again, it'll have tons of columns. I've really kind of cut it down here to a small number. Let's zoom this in here. So we have item code. I just made, I don't know what I was really thinking here. Webinar item, item name, Item group code. So you see I'm not putting you would need to have a group code. I'm not putting like hardware. I'm putting the actual code. I'm not going to cover that today, but I can explain it why SQL, why it needs to be there. User text is remarks, and then I'll do one property here. So same thing, file, save as, this PC, save it as tab delimited, OITM. It's already saved there. Once you've saved it, close this, because like I said, it is for all intents and purposes this file. It doesn't clear out the formats and everything, but like I said, just close it down. You can see the information here. It's all tabs. These are tabs in between each one of these things. So same process, import. This is master data again. So it's not like a sales order. You can do sales orders. You can do lots of different stuff in here too, not just master data. Master data is probably the most common. So today or in this example, I'm going to add data, inventory, item master data, item, tab delimited, remember, ellipses, you got your file. Make sure all these things match. You can check your target data. EDD, looks good. So I push next, run a simulation as a best practice, and nothing's wrong with that. Import, so let's go find ICE or webinar. Webinar item. So this is an item group here. I have remarks, some remarks. Whatever I had imported, again, pretty much any of these fields you can modify in your sheet depending on what you need to bring in. So it's a very powerful tool for doing what you need to maintain your master data. So ice cubes, remarks, it's cold, sorry, and that's about it. Back to my agenda. So to summarize, what is the DTW? It's a very powerful, it's a very extensive tool. I gave you just a tour of basically a simple update and a simple add. It's an extensive tool, can import or update almost every single piece of information as long as it can be done or updated by a human. You cannot use the DTW, say, to like mass close something or mass cancel something that can't be canceled, or all that type of transactional stuff. It's not necessarily that great for that. But if you need to add 100 sales orders, or you're doing some integration scenario or something like that, you can do that. If you're trying to synchronize between two databases, potentially you can do that. Or if you just have like a new UDF or something you want to use for reporting, you can update. If you have a whole bunch of new items to add, or a whole bunch of new leads you want people to work through in their CRM, or you want a whole bunch of new whatever you're doing, then you can do an add. To get it, you would have, it's included. We can just install. It doesn't take very long to install. Just let us know, or if you know where your installer package is, just go installer package / packages. And then there'll be data transfer workbench, install that. You would need the SQL credentials, but you can kind of just set those up for the user, and then the user would need an SAP Business One license, or there needs to be some access to an SAP Business One user license to do it. And you can log on to a test database and mess around. That won't cause any issues. And if you need example templates, remember, just reach out to us. I will send those 2 examples to Tracy if you want to ask her. If you need more extensive examples, you can search Google or ask us for a starter template. Any questions from anyone today? Or
Mike, I've got one here from Melina. Mike, do you have a recommendation on what kind of updates are better or easier done through DTW, or import through Excel or master data manager? Sorry.
Yeah, that's a great question. The more tools you have, the better. I would say like the beautiful thing about B1Up's Master Data Manager is you can schedule it. So the Master Data Manager is great if you're just changing, you have to have B1Up. But if you're going to do an update, I would just do it in the master data manager. Anything I can do in B1Up's master data manager means I don't have to make a file. I don't have to do anything with the DTW. It's very, very quick and very nice that way. It's very easy to use. So again, if you have the luxury of using B1Up, which everybody should,
Well, we
the
should.
mass,
We have quite a few customers today that are here that do have B1 Up. That's
yeah,
just nice to know. It just does so much, you know.
yeah. So and if you do have B1Up, you never looked at the master data manager. I didn't even use it till this year. There's so much stuff. But once I discovered it, basically there is like a B1Up data master data tool, which we should probably cover in one of these coffee breaks. Should write that down. It can be scheduled to even continually maintain business partner master data just from the server. It'll do that. The SAP Business One import from Excel functionality, I don't personally like. I don't love that unless you're going to do something that's very repeat. Unless you're going to repeat it and build a template and make it really easy for a user to update. I find that it's more trouble than using the DTW, especially for occasional things. And it could be my lack of just not, I'll just bias towards using the DTW because I use it more and it's got more functionality. So if you're going to try to use the import from Excel, you're going to run into the limitations where SAP might not put some column you want there. And then it's like, well, why did you waste your time really trying to look at that? You should probably just use the DTW. So I have covered it in other videos, or my videos. I've covered the import from Excel. It's nice because you don't need the DTW tool, but there are lots of limitations to that. And yeah, so the DTW, I would in any sort of like occasional thing or an ad, an ad, I would probably do like price list updates most of the time. I do through DTW, but there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Maybe the way that you're most comfortable is the way to do it, right?
We do have here, like Melina is asking if we can put together a webinar just about Master Manager.
Yeah. What do you want? Can you take that down? I
I
wrote
am. I'm
it down
taking
too.
it down, and it
Yeah.
would be for a fall session because we're in the process, people,
Yeah.
of getting our topics ready for the fall because we're off all summer. So, Melina, thanks. That will be noted. Does anybody else have any questions?
Is there a limit to the amount that you can do in one upload?
That's a good question. I think my limit that I had seen is about 40,000 records. So like if like I've done maybe 120,000, I just broke them into 50,000 chunks, 50,000 chunks. So, if you're, say you do it, I think the limit here is more that if you're trying to do it during the day and other people are trying to affect those tables, then it's going to trip up your lock. You're going to end up locking some of the tables in terms of SQL. I don't know about HANA. But if you do it after hours and you clear all the connections off and you need to do 100,000 records, I don't think it would be a problem. But yeah, I would say kind of logically 40, 50,000 per file.
Thanks, Mike. Are there any other questions? Okay. If there aren't, I just want to remind everybody that I'm going to have this recording up on our YouTube page that should be up by Monday. So there was a lot of material on here. So if you want to go over it, and if anybody wants personal training or more specific information, just send me an email and we can see how we can help you out or schedule something with Mike or with one of our consultants. So Mike, thank you so much. It was very interesting.
Yep. You're welcome.
And have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.